Well, hello everyone. This is Nations League B country. A competition built around promotion and relegation has been absolutely wasted on a football nation determined to remain second rate. And UEFA, they introduced extra playoffs, more promotion, more relegation, but Ireland shall not be moved. It's Dan McDonnell here. I'm stepping in for Joe today. Our football coverage on the Football Show is brought to you by Sky Sports, where you can experience more exclusive live sport than anywhere else, including the biggest Premier League games each weekend, every golf major, the 2025 Ryder Cup, every F1 race, Premier League darts, the 2025 Lions Tour, and much more. You can watch Sky Sports on Sky, or you can stream it on Now. Gary Breen will be along later to pick through the bones of another 2-1 win over Bulgaria, another come from behind victory to stay in League B. But before all of that, Conan Doherty, Will Slattery are in studio. Now, Conan, I sort of have a bit of an apology, right, to make to you, because I did in the newsletter last week. I sort of said I come off the show from Sofia last Tuesday, and I was a little bit negative about your enthusiasm, and I felt a little bit guilty because, like, who is anyone to judge? Like, there's a lot of bad things in the world at the moment.
You did enjoy what you want.
If a man wants to be excited, and I kind of feel it's just the League of Ireland crowd are getting a little bit uppity now. It's like, now they're judging people for what they're interested in. It's like it's all sort of gone a bit full circle here. But then, right, I did come home flew back from Sofia on Friday, and I put on the first 10 minutes of the podcast on Friday. And I had to review my apology at that stage. You were involved as well.
Definitely.
The Buzz brothers here were absolutely flying off the excitement, to the point where I was sitting on the bus, and it was a crowded bus, and I was sitting going, was I at that game? I was beginning to wonder, because there is this whole thing about, the TV experience versus the stadium experience. I'll never forget covering Italy-Ireland back in the day. And this was the influence of the Eamon Dunphy panel, the game in Barry in 2009, where Ireland got that Robbie Keane, Noel Hunt goal. Yeah. I remember we used to fly back with the team at that stage into the early hours in the morning. And I actually was a little bit buzzy off that, going, a draw away to Italy. Yeah. Got into a taxi. The taxi driver was like, oh, that was rubbish, wasn't it, tonight? It was like, because Dunphy, I think, had gone on one and trapping the TV. So it's funny. But so I was thinking about you last night, walking out of the stadium at full time. Were you buzzing again?
Yeah, I tell you what I was most buzzing about. At half time, we were 1-0 down. I was sure we were going to win the match, not just come back and draw. And I actually felt like, if we draw this match, it'll be a bit flat now. After all the hype that me and Will have been trying to do, if we just draw this and get through on aggregate, that would be a bit disappointing. But just the confidence I was feeling. Like, I know Ireland aren't playing swashbuckling stuff. They're not completely dominating, but there's something there. There's something that's emanating from the team. There's a bit, there is a swagger about them, that you sort of not assume, but you do almost expect that they're going to create a chance anyway. But half time, 1-0 down, I was like, this feels okay. We feel like I've got the measure of them.
Can I ask, where were you in the stadium last night?
Right behind the goals, where all the goals were.
Okay, so you were in the right place to be. Because I don't know about going to the games sometimes, and I think in the press box you can definitely be in your bubble. Like, I've been to pretty much every Ireland game that fans have been at in the last 18, 20 years, and you can definitely see things in a way, and you're influenced by what's around you sometimes. Yeah. But I did feel last night, like, and we'll talk about it, me and Will were talking about it outside, like, it was a really good start. But when Bulgaria scored, that period up till half-time, there's just this unease just seems to set in over the state. And I kind of wonder, is that some of the baggage from just a lot of defeats in recent years? But I actually felt the atmosphere was like people were resigned to something. So I'm interested in your confidence, where that was coming from, because you don't feel it in the stadium. And in fact, even after half-time, when I think Mikey Johnston and was it Jason Knight both got booked, and there was a moment of going, is this actually going to be one of those?
Like, it's probably almost two questions, isn't it? Like, the atmosphere definitely isn't great. Now, in fairness, I was with my brother, and we were talking about the atmosphere, and then as we're talking, we're like, well, we're part of the problem here. Like, we're just chatting
at home of conversation.
Exactly. And they end up talking with something else, and there's sleepiness, and then that's what happens. In Bulgaria, you get one chance and you score, and then you are worried if we just sleep the whole way through this match. So I didn't realise it was 60 odd minutes before Evan Ferguson scored. It didn't feel like that much time had elapsed after half time. I think it was just more Azaz, Johnson, Troy Parrott, even Ferguson, I think was probably moving too much, but there was definitely a upwards mentality on the pitch. But I don't think that was translated from the crowd, or the crowd were really feeling that. I think you're right. There was an unease, but I also think based off what you were saying, so I was doing a lot of thinking about you last night, where I was like,
okay.
oh God, let's not clip that part. But I was thinking, yeah, like, maybe the jeopardy isn't that much. If we get relegated, does anybody here really care?
Yeah.
I know I'm just sitting watching the game, enjoying it, but I'm not like, oh, come on, until actually they got a few chances in the second half, and then you did start really getting upward.
I'm a little bit outnumbered here, I feel.
Yeah. I'm not feeling the buzz today that I did last Friday, because there was an expectation coming back to a home game. I know the atmosphere notwithstanding, that they would be a little more dominant. The first 5 minutes again, absolutely electric. You could clip that out and put it on YouTube. It'll be racking up the YouTube views. But nothing came from it. And then it was almost like a comically bad goal to concede. I actually laughed, and I was like, this is you couldn't even it's just such an obvious thing to happen after not getting the early goal, to concede such a sloppy goal. But again, I was very enthused by the manner of the Ireland goals. I thought that was really good football for the 2 goals, and I thought it was good football for the 2 goals last week as well. And I just don't. I'm not used to seeing us score such pretty goals, and it's just giving me a level of enthusiasm. But I will say it was definitely tempered when I saw your stat in your piece today. Like, they've conceded first 7 of the 8 games.
7 of the 8 games, which is a slight concern when you're probably, and it was been spoken about a little bit afterwards in the press last night. The 1-0 win is often the staple of the Irish side, and Bulgaria aren't going to be. Other teams later in the year probably aren't going to be as forgiving as Bulgaria, although. The other thing that was going on last night was Portugal beating Denmark. There was some incredible games going on in Nations League A, and Portugal are through. But also yesterday, Armenia lost 9-1 on aggregate to Georgia, conceded 6 goals in Tbilisi. And Hungary, they're coming down to League B with us. That's where you want to be. They lost 6-1 on aggregate to Turkey. So there is no doubt with Hamer that some things have fallen his way in terms of the group. And there's no doubt, Portugal could smash that group.
Yeah.
But, to the point, to maybe contradict my own sort of scepticism, that maybe these teams will give Ireland more chances later in the year. I think the thing for me is, there was all this discussion about this team maybe being horrible to play against. That Ireland needed to move on from the Kenny years to being horrible to play against. They're still not horrible to play against.
No.
It's still horrible to play against
the
at all.
Opposite. They're pretty easy to play against, but I'm still just enthused by what I'm seeing at the other end of the pitch. I'm just not used to seeing Ireland I was joking with you earlier, those first 5 minutes, the amount of little dummies they were doing. I was like, dummy, another dummy. And then just when you think there can't be another dummy, there is another dummy.
There was a dummy to somebody who wasn't running onto the ball.
There's something about that I'm just not used to seeing from an Ireland team that's just giving me a little bit of enjoyment watching versus maybe some of the other performances, because you listed a couple of other times where it looked like a corner had been turned, that the team was on the rise and they never backed it up. And I don't disagree with what you were saying, but there's also something nice about seeing the way they're playing or have played the last 2 matches.
Well, I think my point was, look, last Friday you lads were very excited about, it was almost a feeling of something we haven't experienced in a period of time. And I was making the point to you, at this window 2 years ago, Ireland played France and played really well in Dublin, and went really close to getting a result against the team that had just been playing in the World Cup final 3 months previously. And there is no doubt, people will happily remind me and remind others who were quite supportive of Stephen Kenny that the era was a bust. But along the way, there was some, the first half in Portugal, amazing. The game at home to the Netherlands in Dublin, Ireland were ahead after 5-6 minutes. There's been a lot of sort of good 10 minutes or good halves, and even what last night reminded me of, weirdly, except the ending was different, and this is hopefully where you hope the corner was turned. The first game with fans after COVID was Ireland against Azerbaijan 3 days after the Portugal game in Faro, and Ireland for the first 10-15 minutes, fans were there, blitzed them, couldn't score. And then it just sort of started to drift away a little bit. They scored that whirly from 30 yards. And like I said last night, the whole ground the pin went into the balloon. Yeah. What I like is that last night that happened and they brought it back round and won, whereas before they didn't. One of the
reasons I was kind of more positive last Friday is because I feel like the moments you listed there were greeted with positivity by journalists, by supporters, and for some reason last week it was like, oh, why are you getting excited about that? But the moments you listed, people were getting enthused. I feel like when Stephen Kenny had any positive moments, it was being spun as really good stuff. I thought Ireland played a lot of good stuff on Friday and it was being completely talked down. I was like, we've gone too far the other way. I thought after last Thursday, I was like, there was some good goals and some good football played, and you'd swear we were terrible and like it was a really rubbish performance. Whereas the moments you referred to there, I thought were greeted with a lot of enthusiasm. Whereas at the time I was like, God, is that a bit too much enthusiasm? Whereas this one I thought got the opposite treatment.
But I think the point is that I think people are probably, and maybe where I'm coming from is that you're probably almost a little bit scarred by that enthusiasm, and now you're thinking, do you know, just with this group of players, you're going to be slower to believe that the corner was turned, to declare it being turned so easily. Like you have Wembley in November, where I thought Ireland were really good for 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden you're sitting looking at the scoreboard, it's 5-0. Yeah. You're thinking, I just think that there's some progress in certain areas. Gary Breen's going to come on, and I know that Gary's very happy with the system, and there is no doubt that at least it looks like Ireland have a bit of an identity around a formation that they're probably more comfortable with than what they ended up with in the last regime.
Yeah. I think part of the beauty of that system, and it's always great when you see a team that are so well adapted now to a system, and like it's still early days in Hamer's reign, but even just being able to say to Manny, right, you're not playing this game, Azaz, you're going over left, and Parrott's coming in. Like players are moving around positions in that system, and it still works. And then Ferguson was doing what you were sort of thinking that he would do before the first of these two games: come deep, get the ball there. Him and Parrott were dovetailing really nicely. I just think you're starting to see Robbie Brady really knows where to be if he's going forward.
Yeah,
there's filling in. There is a real streetwiseness around a certain team. I know it's tempered. Like Bulgaria aren't that good. I still don't take that away from Ireland's performances or getting the results here. Maybe your caution is still warranted.
Yeah.
But like what I do look at, and with a view to the autumn, is I look at the middle of the pitch, and like, you know, Cullen and Knight, even just stature wise, they just look so lightweight, you know. And I'm looking at maybe what they're doing now at the minute. I know they're good players and they've done good stuff, but it's like, could we replace them with bigger units that could still do the same function that they're doing?
I know Gary has some points on that. I know Gary's probably not against the Nathan Collins experiment going back in there and that, because there's no doubt Bulgaria after half time last night, and maybe even before it, they realised, let's just sit back in on top of Cullen and Knight, and that's when I started to get worried. But then you actually watch the Ferguson goal. It's actually Nathan Collins picks a pass to Ferguson, and they sort of break that line and get to Ferguson. The question is, will a better team allow Evan to pick up those positions? But these are good problems to have. Hamer afterwards, because I think Finn Azaz has probably been the breakthrough star. I can't imagine an Ireland team now where he's not picked, even though you have Smallbone to come back, you know, a few other players, Ogbene and Festi. I know they're slightly different positions. But I think there is a discussion point around Evan Ferguson. He played in the number 10 last night. Finn Azaz played in the number 10 on Thursday and in the second half of last night. Can they be accommodated in the same team? So here's what Hamer had to say to Tony on RTE afterwards when he was asked about that.
No, I think Finn is so clever as a player, so creative. He can play whatever position we put him in, but he's really the strongest where he's finding the pockets behind the forward players, whether it's wingers or striker. But yeah, obviously we would like everybody to be fit, and the good thing about today was 2 strikers scored, and it's a big competition. Everybody is unhappy not to be playing, and that is how it should be. But credit to them, they get a chance and they make their feet do the talking, and that is how it should be.
So September, presume everyone's fit. Everyone's had a good summer at their club. Presume Evan Ferguson is playing somewhere. Who do you want to see in that team sheet when Hungary come to town? I think it's a Saturday evening, which is going to be great. No matter whatever happens, that's going to be a brilliant build up to that day. What are you thinking?
Finn Azaz, and then we'll work from there.
Really? Yeah.
I think he does have to be in the team. I think he's so important for blending the midfield and attack. But I would like to see Ferguson a bit more in that role. I think what disappointed me, and again, you watched it from behind the goal, so in the first half, Ferguson's coming towards me, back to goals, looking for the ball, and boys aren't playing at him. And it's like, if he's asking for the ball in that position, and the size of him, give it into him and see what he can do. And we know he can hold it up and he can hold players off, but they weren't often playing it into him, even though he was coming short looking for it. But I think, sort of touching on what you're saying, I think I would try out Collins a bit more in midfield, just because I'm just like that looks like a problem that's going to come up again in the future. The midfield looks too lightweight, and we're obviously well stacked with centre backs, and Big Jimmy Dunn comes on, looks really good at right back.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's a lot
Plenty
of
of
good,
those, yeah.
impressive specimens there that I feel like maybe Collins at midfield needs to be tried out a bit more as well.
Well, I tell you, someone who won't be happy with this Evan Ferguson, Troy Parrott, Finn Azaz discussion. It's going to be Adam Idah. So Adam Idah last night, I missed this. I don't know, it was on the TV. So he's got the finger to the lips after.
Curious as to what he was.
I didn't like that.
And then afterwards he comes in. So he spoke to a couple of lads, not myself. By the way, Evan Ferguson was sent into the wrong press conference room last night. Like you know, you just can't catch a break at the moment. That apparently there was someone new in the, I'm not sure what happened, but he's walking down the corridor to do the mix zone, the huddle with like 3 or 4 journalists, 5. You know, it's a bit more of a standing around in a chat. Accidentally gets directed into the main auditorium.
The exit door.
No press officer there. So there was no one there to call, you're up next, you're up next. But Evan managed the press conference seamlessly. No one talked over each other. Everyone waited for their questions. He dealt with everything. He spoke about how he's in a good place mentally and physically. I was asking him about the expectation of the Irish nation and all this. He sat there still in his gear from the match. Handled it really well. But Adam Idah did make it to the right place. And people were asking what happened. He says, I saw a lot of stuff online, so I was just telling people to shut up, really. Just about me not doing well recently and why I've not been playing and why I should be on the bench. When I saw a couple of bits, that celebration was towards that. And then he went on to say he was frustrated, I guess with Hamer, that he wasn't picked. Obviously, yeah, because he didn't get off the bench at all on Thursday, and Rocco Vata and others got on. Obviously, he had his reasons why he didn't play in the last game. I was frustrated. I didn't really agree with it, but that's football. We were men at the end of the day. We had a laugh and a joke after the game. I think that's all I needed to do, to go on the pitch and show what I could do. And thankfully, I did that. Hopefully, he can see what I'm about now. That's one of those that's great when you win. You can sort of imagine if that's to equalise in a 1-1 draw and he's doing that, it's a bit more of a talking point. I don't know, Will, like it just shows I wasn't massively aware of the Adam Idah negativity, but in their world, that's all they see.
Like how much people seem to have an issue with Heimer playing wise. It's like if they're not picked, they're happy to mention like, you know, I didn't agree with his reason. I don't know. I feel like the other managers weren't getting this much backlash or, you know, back and forth publicly. You know better than I would. Like.
Yeah, I can't think of too much. I think maybe a feeling around the Kenny stuff at times. It's always the most recent reference point. But in fairness, Mick McCarthy's Ireland as well. But like Kenny's, there was a feeling, was it almost too happy at times? You know, the unhappy players probably weren't in the squad. The ones that had been exiled, a lot of the people within it. But yeah, I mean, Adam Idah a couple of years ago. Like the last time Ireland played Portugal in a qualifying group,
brilliant. Yeah,
he looked like he could be the one.
Heimer said it in one of his answers. It's a good problem to have. Like, there's a lot of different options there and different styles of play. You know, it's September until Hungary. We have those 2 friendlies in the summer. I'm not sure if they'll all be available for that, but I feel like there's a few different options there.
Yeah. I honestly, I find the Idah thing very weird because it's a weird scenario because when you're in with the crowd and score, but you always, when the striker scores, it always means more, especially with the Ferguson thing. Then Idah comes on and you're jumping up celebrating, and then he's shushing. I've never been in a crowd before where a home player is shushing the home fans.
Yeah.
And this player, like you say, like I don't think he gets a lot of negativity.
I think he does. He's had it from Celtic fans.
Was he talking about Celtic fans?
Celtic and Rangers
or
fans.
Ireland fans? I certainly haven't seen an Ireland onslaught that he's terrible or shouldn't be doing.
There's probably been a bit around like would Johnny Kenny have got into the squad? I know when Johnny Kenny made his debut for Celtic, there would have been a lot, like, and if you're reading, and I think the mentality of the sports people, how could you not sometimes look below the line as such? You know, there's hundreds of comments, and I think when Kenny came on and did okay, was it against Ross County? There was hundreds of comments below. He's better than Idah, and you can imagine Idah's looking. Well, actually, look at our careers. I'm ahead of him, so maybe there's an element to that.
Maybe I was thinking the only talk of like going into this match was would it be Ferguson or Idah? But Ferguson scored as well then, so it wasn't the night to shush if that was what he was directing it towards. But obviously he's frustrated, he's emotional, and I was delighted to see him score still. But it was just such a weird vibe where you're jumping up celebrating and you see this guy telling you to shut up.
Yeah.
Basically, so you're like, should I keep celebrating? Should I be happy about
He's not personally attacked.
Yeah. Is anyone happy about this? I should say Conor McKeown on the Indo Sport feed later today will have Conor McKeown. He was pacing around the building earlier, getting his bearings again. All these standing presenters, I don't know, is it weird for you guys? You know,
we've all had a crack at it.
You know, the consistency of Joe being around the place. But Conor is presenting the GAA show later, looking back on the final round of the National Football League with Colm Keys and Donegal Boyle. I will say before we go to Gary, I did have a particularly sad moment last night when I went home because I was doing this thing about Ireland in League B and I was like, is there any other League B nation? Are we the only League B loyal? So the answer is yes. We are the only team that's been in League B from the start.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah,
It's been 7 years.
And you name the only. So the next Nations League campaign will be the 5th Nations League campaign. It will be Ireland's 5th campaign in Nations League B. There's only one other nation that hasn't been promoted or relegated from League. They haven't won a group or finished bottom of a group.
Oh.
We're going to have a playoff. It's a tough one. It's
Is
also
it?
a bit of a trick question.
Is it Northern Ireland?
No, because they're only come back for 3. No, the only other team is Russia, who got kicked out of international football. As I looked through the first Nations League B was Ireland, Austria, Wales, Russia, Slovakia, Sweden, Ukraine, Bosnia, Northern Ireland, Denmark, Czech Republic, and Turkey. So we are the ones that we haven't gone away. Some have gone up, some have gone down. Russia, they left. They left international football. They were kicked out of international football before they could leave League B.
That's brilliant.
It's been 7 years in League B. I was 26 when we started. I'm now in my 33, and I'm married with a kid in the way. Like, this is mad. Like,
As
I
they say,
was a young man back then.
You can measure your life through Irish League B campaigns. Austria are going to be in their 4th one. Ukraine are going to be in their 4th one. So they are the closest to us in terms of like a League B DNA. But we are. We are League B. I mean, it's UEFA's fault because the first one Ireland did finish bottom, get relegated, and they changed the rules to keep Ireland in League B, and we've never left. We've never left.